Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 691. I didn't already say that, did I? Did I say the number of the episode twice? I feel like I didn't, but
You did not. Definitely
I did not. Okay, good. That's good. I'm exhausted. And the voice you heard on the other side of the camera from me is I'm really flubbing this intro. I'm just gonna leave it. It's kind of funny, but joining me is
Yeah,
my
I think
good
you're
friend Nathan. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. My suit for the wedding came in this evening. I'm really excited. So I just took it out and put the jacket on with like a old dress shirt, and I was like, oh, this feels good. Color turned out how I wanted, shape and fit and everything. So it's been a great day. Made a steak dinner tonight. Honestly, I'm kind of on a roll tonight.
That's awesome,
You better watch out. If you got a hot take, it's getting slammed.
So you're doing good because I'm doing bad, but we can discuss.
Oh my, let's talk about it. Let's open the forum.
Dude, I've had the worst week of work maybe ever. Like I literally am not kidding. Since I talked to you last, I've spent multiple nights in the mud fixing stuff till like 10 o'clock at houses. Like it's been because your boy, look, I'm an HVAC salesman. I sell stuff. That's my job, what it's supposed to be. But I'm also a guy who like really cares, and I feel really bad when people don't have heat. And I tell people, call me if there's a problem, and I'll come. And I mean that when I say that. And so that means I get calls late at night, and I go help people. And is that fun? No. Is that great customer service? Yes. Is it very important? Yeah, it is. You got to take good care of people. So I have been honestly a little overextended. Like I had to rewatch the Monday Night Football game, the playoff game, because I wasn't home. I was literally crawling in mud till like 10 o'clock last night. It was not fun. But how are you,
Sorry
man?
to hear that. Well, we went over that already. I'm doing great.
You're right. I told you, I'm
great.
off, dude. I'm tired. I'm not doing great. I've been getting up at 5, and then getting home at like 11. It's been a crazy week. I have a surprise for you, but you said you think you know what the surprise is. What do you think it is? Like, I don't even know what you could possibly imagine I have up my sleeve.
Well, honestly, when you said it, I didn't think we were going to air it out live on the show.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, he definitely got a ring for Molly. But now, I don't know.
Oh, I've had the ring. She wears it occasionally. Like the other night. Well, look, there's no secrets. That's the relationship we have.
But did you like formally propose?
No.
She still wears it every once in a while?
Yeah, well, because here's the thing. We remember I had a problem in my personal life. I had to like figure out a lot of stuff. Our timeline got pushed back. But I bought the ring she liked. Like I made sure, like I'm not spending a couple grand on a ring if it's not the one she signs off on and absolutely likes. So like, you bet your sweet ass, I told her I'm buying this ring, and she was like, that's the one I want. I love it. So she knew all along what ring I had and that I had it.
All right.
Other night, we fell asleep, and she fell asleep wearing the ring and wore it all night. And I woke up and I was like, that's awesome. I look at her with her little ring on in bed, and I was like, that's my future wife. That's great.
That's fine. Okay, well then, if that's not it, then what's the surprise?
Yeah, here it is. I interviewed Jack Easterby this morning for like an hour. It was really
wow.
And I gotta say, like, I really like Jack. I'm really surprised at how much I like Jack. Actually, like, he really awesome dude. Not gonna lie, and I mean this out of absolute respect to Jack. Boring interview, like really not very interesting in my opinion. I mean that out of love for him, because I mean this, like I told him afterward, I'm like, because what happened, we talked for an hour on camera, recording ends, and then I'm like, dude, I still have you, like let's talk. And then we talk off the record for like another 30 minutes, and that's where it got really interesting and really cool.
Right.
And I really, again, I say this, and I did not expect to feel this way at all. I love Jack Easterby, like an awesome guy. Seems like a good guy, really cares. I think he'd be the first to tell you he made a lot of mistakes in his time with Houston specifically. But I asked for his permission. I'm like, hey man, we just spoke for 30 minutes off the record. How much of this conversation, the part we're not recording, can I talk about? And he gave me permission to, because I think I told him to his face, like, dude, you do a bad job like telling your own story. Like, he's really uncomfortable promoting himself. He doesn't want to toot his own horn. He also doesn't want to speak badly of other people. So he's unwilling to tear other people down. He's also not comfortable promoting himself. So therefore, he allows a narrative about him to be terrible. I think I look at his career and in talking to him and hearing stuff, it's like he's dealt with a lot of things that are pretty unprecedented from a organizational standpoint. Like there was a guy in New England who killed 2 people. I don't know if you know that. There was a certain quarterback who like has a lot of allegations, and he had to deal with that. Like he's had to deal with a lot of stuff that I think are not his. And I think you would actually like angle him as like a crisis management guy. To be honest, I don't think Jack Easterby should be a general manager. This is a guy who was a team chaplain who became an interim general manager of the Houston Texans, and I also, in talking to him, and I'm going long on this, but I think honestly I should probably make a video about like my hour and a half with Jack Easterby. But I don't think he ever intended to be like a general manager. It's not like
Wait, hold on. Are we not going to get a video?
Oh, I'll get a video, but I think I should
just
make
like you and him.
No, we'll put out an hour video, but I think the hour interview is boring. I think the better thing is to do like a 6-minute like debrief where I just talk about what I like my angle and what I learned from it. And I asked him like, "Hey Jack, can I make a separate video just about what I take away from talking to you for an hour and a half?" He said yes. And so Jack Easterby, cool guy, good dude. I don't think should have been a general manager. Told that to his face. He was respectful. I try to be kind. Like I was like, dude, I feel bad. I've said some like mean stuff about you on the internet, and to tell that to his face was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't think like basically everyone in Houston got fired, and then he's like the last guy in the room is like, well, someone's got to be GM for a little while, and it was him. But I don't think that was his goal, and I don't think that's what he should do next. I don't think that's what he's trying to do next. But I'm surprised at how much I like him and how much I wish him well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm excited to see the video, both videos that we're going to see, and dissect it and have an opinion of my own.
Is it actually, I think it's not an interesting interview, but does that inherently make it more interesting to listen to? Because you can listen for what's not interesting about it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be more interesting than you're thinking.
Yeah, we'll see. I really thought I wasn't going to like him. I really... and I'm like, dude, we exchange emails. Call me if you ever want. I really just either he's like the best salesman ever, but I also know he's not because he's actually terrible at promoting himself for real. Like with all love, Jack, like you tell your story horribly, and it's like, man, I kind of feel bad for the guy. Like I don't know. I didn't expect this whole opinion. Anyway, this is way too long.
Anyways, storytelling really quickly. Storytelling is a skill. It is something that can be practiced. It is something that is used in your professional life, personal life, etc. Make sure you learn how to tell stories. It's important.
And tell your own story. Like talk about, because like for real, we end an hour-long interview, and then I get that. Then once his guard is down, he's willing to share stuff that's not being recorded. Like real details of a story come out. I'm like, dude, you should tell people that. And he doesn't want to, but I'm like, definitely when you interview with people, you should tell them these things. Cause
100%.
Like, dude, I'm not going to say anymore, but I'll tell you after the show, what some conversation I know he's having. And I'm like, I really root for the guy. And I just can't believe I just did not expect that to be my take after this. It's like,
that's awesome.
It's playoff time and it's now or never. Do not miss out on the last couple weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the NFL playoffs. You can turn something like $5 into $500, maybe even win up to 1,000 times your money. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account. So put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. I've got one note here. I know we'll get into the Wildcard Weekend. Honestly, pardon my French, boring fucking weekend of football. I really didn't. There was one good game, and we did kind of predict which game was going to be good, and we'll talk about that. But because it's such a light weekend in a weird way, I want to tell you, people out there listening, go look up Chad Smith Drumeo videos. Chad Smith is a drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Okay. He plays The Kill by 30 Seconds to Mars without ever hearing it before, and he plays it like he's like listening for the first time and just plays his own, like what he would think the song would be with drums. And it's amazing. It's like the best dude I've ever seen. And then I watched him play a Dua Lipa video like tonight. And I'm like, I could watch Chad Smith play drums like forever. I just love, it's like fun. Dude loves what he's doing. I encourage people in this boring time of NFL playoffs, go watch Chad Smith Drumeo videos instead.
Yeah,
it's great.
I'm sure Dua Lipa was fantastic.
Let's talk about the NFL Wildcard Weekend. Nathan, where do you want to start? Because I again have this opinion that there was 1 out of 6 games that was good. It was kind of a crappy weekend of football. Yeah. What do you make of this past weekend?
I mean, the better teams won some football games. I don't think that there was a single team that, made any upsets or made any waves, right? I mean, the Tampa Bay game against the Commanders, you could maybe argue that Washington, gave them an upset, but you look at their records and their success over the year, maybe not relatively equally matched. For a second there, I thought Denver had a chance against Buffalo, and then Buffalo just kind of snapped out of it, woke up, and obviously took control of that football game. Outside of that game, there wasn't a whole ton. Like, teams just kind of took control of games, and that's what you see in playoff football, right? Teams play differently. It's like that playoff baseball, playoff basketball, playoff football. It's entirely different. Defensive coordinators have been hiding schemes all year. Defensive coordinators are waiting to take something away from you that you've been allowed to have all year, which we saw in a number of cases this year. Players are going to step up in the big moments. Other players are going to crumble in those same big moments. So you just get an entirely different feel, right? It's like what they talk about all the time. There's preseason speed, there's regular season speed, there's your divisional matchup speed, playoff speed, and Super Bowl speed, right? All of those games come with their own level of intensity, their own level of attention to detail, all these other factors, right? So we saw the teams that are better coached, more experienced, honestly have better rosters come out and win those football games.
I'd like to go through the list, just recap what happened, and then we can break it down if that's okay.
Yeah.
The Houston Texans, Jack Easterby's former team, they beat the Chargers 32-12. The Ravens beat the Steelers 28-14. The Steelers end the year with 5 losses in a row and clearly have problems we can talk about later. The Buffalo Bills beat the Broncos 31-7. Mm-hmm. The Eagles beat the Packers. Packers are banged up, not their best, I think, foot forward. Eagles beat the Packers 22-10, kind of a dominant, grindy game where I think the skill and the ball control muscles were flexed by Philly. Mm-hmm. The Vikings really surprised me on Monday night. They got kind of dominated by the Rams, 27-9 in Arizona. Game moved because of wildfires.
That's one I want to dive into once you keep going through it.
Here, get close to the camera. Your camera's out of focus. I don't know why. I think it needs to but we'll just continue while you. Yeah. Oh, pull focus. I guess it won't. We just have blurry Nathan too. That'd be kind of fun. The whole episode.
You got to snatch the focus.
Washington beat Tampa 23-20 in a brilliant, really, really good wild card game, and it was that was game of the weekend. We'll talk about that obviously as well. Looks like Nathan might need a minute though. Give us a minute. Oh, he's right as I say that. Solved. Look at that.
You just had to talk to it nice.
I should have done it earlier actually.
I gave it a little pet. I said, "Come on."
Let's dive into the Vikings Rams game. It's actually the most recent game anyway.
Yeah.
What the hell happened? What'd you make of that game?
The Vikings struggled to protect Sam Darnold for the second game in a row. And if you're the Rams, like we talked about, late in the season and going into the playoffs, teams are going to figure out what you do well and they're going to take it away. What they realize, and this is true for kind of your McVay, Shanahan offenses, things are predicated on timing. And without Christian Darrisaw heading up that Vikings offensive line, with a couple other injuries kind of scattered around, they were unable to protect Sam Darnold. They were unable to maintain the timing that is essential to the success of that offense. So the run game was stifled. And once the run game was stifled, then it came down to, okay, we're sending a bunch of pressure. Jared Verse was absolutely eating, causing a bunch of mayhem in the backfield. And that threw everything off. And again, they took the note from Detroit. They said, okay, let's just heat this team up. And they didn't wait till the second half, once things had kind of gotten going. They said, we're going to heat them up from the jump. And that to me was the biggest difference in this matchup this time around. Like last time we saw the Rams kind of have this offensive explosion. But if we're being honest, the Rams offense really didn't do anything spectacular. The Rams offense was truthfully powered by those turnovers that were generated by the defense. So a big tip of the cap to the Rams defense. And honestly, it just might have been a little bit of a coaching mismatch. And I think that Brian Flores, one of the things that he likes to do on that Minnesota defense is create confusion for the quarterback. When you've got Matt Stafford, a guy who's seen a lot of snaps, he's seen a lot of coverages, there's not a lot you can hide from him. So there was no major disruption to the flow of their offense, and they weren't able to create turnovers because Stafford felt relatively comfortable most of the night. I'm not saying it was a perfect, clean pocket and he was dicing them up, but you're not going to get those turnovers that the Vikings have been generating throughout the course of this year because you've got a veteran quarterback back there. So, I mean, again, the story was the defense. Rams got after their quarterback. And then on the flip side, that Vikings defense was unable to generate any sort of pressures and turnovers. And the one turnover that they did have that could have been game-changing was called a forward pass. I'm not sure how that's a forward pass. I don't care what you say. But yeah, that was the difference in the game.
Yeah, Sam Darnold got sacked 9 times. I've only ever seen a quarterback overcome getting sacked that much. There's a game a couple years ago, I believe it was a playoff game against the Titans. Joe Burrow got sacked 13 times and still won, which just really, this game makes it even more, like, gives further context to how incredible that Joe Burrow performance actually was, in my opinion. But you said it earlier, you know, the Lions game really exposed, I think, some problems in Minnesota, and the Rams followed up and kind of used that as a blueprint to attack the Vikings defense or offense a second time. And I was hoping we were going to see an adjustment. Like, certainly in Minnesota, they were going to go, that can't happen again. And unfortunately, it happened again, almost exactly like the game, was it week 18 against the Lions? And so I honestly, this is my thought. Did Sam Darnold lose a ton of money in the last 2 weeks? Like, between the Detroit loss and this, like, does this reflect poorly on Sam, or is this, you know, the offensive line and the scheme? Like, how much does Sam take a hit for the last 2 losses of the Vikings? They had a great year, 14-3, but 2 really, really noteworthy losses to end the season.
All 4 of their losses are to the same team, the same 2 teams, and in back-to-back weeks.
What?
So you remember that? Remember when they lost to the Lions earlier in the year, and then that was a heartbreaking game. They followed that up Thursday Night Football and lost to the Rams. Right?
You're right, dude. Yeah, they lost to the Lions, then the Rams, and then the Lions, the Rams a second time.
And then if you remember earlier in the year, there was that conversation around the teams that play the Lions one week, the following week they lose because they get so physically beat up. I don't know if we saw just essentially a repeat of that. You know, there's nothing new under the sun. But yeah, the Lions do put a physical beating on you. They certainly got after Sam. And I think that where I thought Sam was going to bounce back, it appears that he remained unsettled, really trying to do too much in the pocket, holding onto the ball probably a little bit too long. I mean, if you're watching the broadcast, I mean, Aikman was harping on it over and over again about about Sam Darnold kind of moving too much. But back to your original question, Sam Darnold wasn't the exclusive reason that they lost last night. But because you're the starting quarterback, because there was already so many questions about you and your ability in big games, and because you had 2 bad games and in 2 big games back-to-back weeks, you're going to lose some money, right? That's why you pay guys like Lamar and Pat and Josh and Joe. That's why you pay those guys the big bucks, right? Because when the chips are down, they know how to find a way to win. Right now, we haven't seen that from Sam Darnold. He was flustered. The defense really got in his face for a second weekend in a row. And yeah, I think you're right. He probably lost a little bit of his cachet that he had spent the whole entire year building.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, Sam Darnold didn't look poised in the 2 biggest moments of the year for Minnesota. And I mean that's just honest assessment when you look at how his demeanor, how he performed, how he handled some tough stuff. Situation's tough. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, you're getting hit, you got bodies all around you, but you got to step up. And he didn't look poised or comfortable or calm in either of these 2 losses. I really don't know what's going to happen in Minnesota. Are they going to give Sam Darnold a contract? Did Sam Darnold earn a lot of money somewhere else? Like, could he go to Seattle and follow what Geno Smith did the exact same way? That'd be hilarious. I don't know. And another question, like, I think the draft is not great for quarterbacks. We talk about Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, and Cameron Ward. I got to say this on the record. I'm not a big fan of Shedeur Sanders. I'm really not like him as a person. I think his arm talent's kind of average. There's some bad interceptions. Marcus Whitman, friend of the show, that franchise guy, made a really good episode. I think it's titled something like, "So this is a first round pick, apparently, like a top 5 pick, apparently," something like that. And it's a breakdown of Shedeur Sanders. I couldn't agree more with that video. It's fantastic. But what I will say, a big question mark looming in Minnesota is JJ McCarthy basically part of this 2025 quarterback class? Because I think you could get him for a second round pick. And is JJ McCarthy for a second round pick a better value and investment than Shedeur Sanders? Like, could that be an option the Giants do, for example, to solve their quarterback problem? They're kind of out of the top couple picks where they need to be. Maybe they trade for JJ McCarthy. Maybe they get Sam Darnold instead. I don't know, but certainly one of the two quarterbacks in Minnesota is probably going to move, and I just don't know which one. I have no idea. And I do have to wonder if we've already seen a ceiling from Sam Darnold. He was great all year, but the two biggest moments, you needed your quarterback to arrive and be poised and frankly lead to victory. We didn't see a guy who could handle a big moment. And long term, if that's going to continue, it's not going to work. Like, you just can't do that.
Yeah, and here's the thing: is Sam Darnold on a number of occasions this year did get it out of the dirt. Now, they weren't playoff games and they weren't the game for the number 1 seed, but he showed his ability to bounce back in second halves. It just wasn't in the biggest games. Now, I think that Kevin O'Connell in that post-game presser was certainly indicating that this was going to be the last bit of Sam Darnold that we saw. And the biggest reason for me why I think that's going to happen is O'Connell gets to restart his clock, right? You had a year and a half with Kirk Cousins, and then you kind of had to play, plug and play quarterback to, finish out the year last year. And then you did a full year with Sam Darnold, and all things considered, successes, right? Playoffs 1 year, and then obviously things didn't go the right way. Kirk Cousins injury. And then now you've got this year. So successes. But you weren't able to get over the hump. By starting JJ McCarthy, you get to restart your own clock as a head coach a little bit, because you've proven that with quarterbacks who now with Kirk Cousins looked bad with the Falcons, with Sam Darnold, who may or may not be at his ceiling, that you can get teams to the playoffs. So now if you have a guy like JJ McCarthy, a guy that you can mold and kind of grow yourself, perhaps support, a little bit more in the run game, getting a back that's not quite as old as Aaron Jones, you get kind of a little bit of a reset. Brian Flores is likely going to be out the door, whether he takes a head coaching job or a DC job somewhere else. That's going to be some welcomed change as well. I shouldn't say welcome change, but it's going to be change. But again, the fact being, O'Connell will get to kind of restart his clock as a head coach if McCarthy is the starting quarterback. Plus, he's going to still be on that cheap deal, and you'll be able to support, that defense that honestly isn't great all the way across the roster. Some talented players, but definitely not strong enough up front in that front seven. And then, I don't know, maybe get another offensive weapon, another offensive toy.
The clear best way to win in the NFL right now is to get a quarterback on a cheap rookie contract, bar none. And paying, if Sam and JJ are similar, paying JJ next to nothing compared to Sam Darnold's potential earnings is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Also consider this, man, like the best year of Sam Darnold's career was when he was coached by Kevin O'Connell. I would argue the best we saw of Kirk Cousins was with Kevin O'Connell.
Exactly.
Like, so if you're Kevin O'Connell, I think you can say this without even any arrogance. Like, I can work with any quarterback, man. I can take whatever quarterback you give me and I can help them win. I've taken guys who were proven to be terrible other places and I won with them. Like, I can elevate a quarterback, and I don't think he's arrogant or like out of line thinking that. And I think Jason McCarthy, you know the name James Price. We grew up with him in the Vancouver, Washington area. He went to Camas. He went to Vrable.
Very good family friends.
He coached JJ in high school at IMG Academy. He was like his high school football coach, literally for real. He loves JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy's like a sponge, like the best dude ever. He followed him to Michigan. They keep in contact. James Price talks really highly of JJ's football IQ and passion and love for the game. If you're a coach, that's all you want. A guy who's enthusiastic, going to come in, be a student of the game. Like JJ so clearly would work well with Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah.
So I'm leaning. I think we're in agreement here that JJ is probably the future of Minnesota
Yeah.
still,
And
despite the injury.
and it's not intended to be a slight on Sam Darnold, but there was a plan when drafting JJ that at some point he was going to take over. Again, now that you've somewhat seen the ceiling from Sam Darnold, McCarthy's had a chance to sit back and watch this year. From what I understand, he's not necessarily practicing, but he's out there able to throw the football around and, be present. He's not just sitting on the couch taking in film. So he's got a little bit of his legs under him. You give him that full off season to recover. You give him OTAs. You give him mini camp. Some preseason games, and all of a sudden he could be ready week one. And I think that, for the reasons we just laid out, it probably works better for him. And Sam Darnold likely ends up at whatever team can't trade up or doesn't end up getting a quarterback.
Yeah. I got to say, I was so disappointed. I was really hoping to see an adjustment from Sam after the Lions game. Like, I really wanted a better performance. And we just didn't get it. And we got more of, I think, what we saw week 18. And I personally was rooting for better. I was hoping like he'd make a big change, have an adjustment. And it's like, man, I still think I wish I could have talked to him and said, man,
yeah,
you got to come out really calm. Listen to like classical music before the game. Like, your heartbeat and heart rate has to be low, has to be chill and calm, ice cold, relaxed Sam Darnold. I don't think we got that in the playoff game. And it's unfortunate. I just don't think, I feel like that's an observation. If I made that from my couch, how did no one in the building communicate that and work on that with Sam? And I was like, man, I think that's a missed opportunity to help a young guy grow as a quarterback. I mean, a young guy. We're the same age. I don't know. Like, I've played catch with him before.
Insane for how long he's been in the league, right?
Yeah.
He's had like almost 3 different careers now. But again, with Sam, it's tough to see it go down that way when you know that he only needed to beat the blitz, 3 times. 3 times is all you need for a defensive coordinator to be like, okay, we gotta back off. We gotta find other ways to get pressure. Maybe only rush 4 and focus on stunts with your front. But when you're having 0 response to the blitz, you don't know where to go with the football pre-snap. You're not getting it out when it's open. You're not confident in releasing the football. Those problems just get worse and worse and worse and worse. And then, it looks like it's all your fault.
Yeah, I'd love to do like a Gruden style conversation, like Gruden's film.
Can we get Gruden on the show? I know he's doing all the Barstool stuff now.
I probably could. I mean, I feel like we could try. Dude, definitely you should be involved in that. But
I would just love to get embarrassed by football knowledge. Just how, you know what I mean?
Yeah, anyways. His enthusiasm for the game is cool. I think it's not going to happen. Here, the problem is quarterbacks are so worried about like the way they're viewed. Like, you can't ever sit down and criticize a guy and have them, like, you can't do that really. There's no setting and forum where that's acceptable, because if you show any weakness, you're bad. And like, you have guys like CJ Stroud saying they're top 5 quarterback. Like, every quarterback's like pompous and we're the best, and you can't. But the truth is, like, I'd love to sit down with Sam and make a video. Honestly, we can do it off camera, talking about week 18 and the wild card game, and like being like, dude, come on, man. Like, what? This is your worst film of the year. How do you answer for this? Like, do you see there's a blitz coming? You're not beating the blitz, or you got a guy open against Detroit and you're throwing it high. Like, what's your take? How does that happen? And I think some of this is on the media for not asking great questions, but some of that is just, we don't live in an environment where people can honestly talk about their mistakes. And like that's just a disappointment to me about the current NFL media landscape. It's like, man, that would be such interesting, content to have those conversations on camera. And I don't think they really happen.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
There is nothing like being in person for an NFL playoff game. The energy, the sound, the crowd, it's incredible. And Game Time can help you get NFL playoff tickets. Here is what Game Time does for you. The Game Time Picks feature allows for a curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and other events. They have all-in pricing, which is a feature that makes sure there are no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy your tickets, and Game Time has a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time has ticket coverage where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I want to hear your thoughts about the Steelers. Mike Tomlin, it's been forever, and this team is still not. We watched the Steelers lose to the Ravens 28-14. I think it sets up a great playoff game between Buffalo and the Ravens next week. Like, that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's like, it's been a long time since I saw Pittsburgh win anything after the year ended. And it's like, man, the regular season has ended. Where do you stand right now on Mike Tomlin? Tell me about this your take on him right now.
I said it at the beginning of this year, and granted, the Steelers ended up getting a couple more wins than I thought they would. This end of the season ended how I thought, just losing. Mm-hmm. And again, like, I don't want to put it solely on Mike Tomlin, but if you look at what's been consistent with the Steelers for the last number of years, it's been the presence of Mike Tomlin, which comes with a tone deaf to offense, right? And here we are again. You had the first couple weeks with Justin Fields. Nobody really knows who you are, what you are. Arthur Smith, new offensive coordinator. Things looked okay. And then, a switch to Russell Wilson. Now it's like, okay, now this offense looks different. Now we have to cover the way Russell plays. Now a little bit of tape gets out on that. And then all of a sudden you get to the back end of the schedule with good teams. They're like, oh, this offense actually isn't good. All we have to do is make sure that they can't run the football, and they don't have anybody who can consistently win one-on-one. And that includes George Pickens, just because of how he is as a player and his kind of frenetic style. So now all of a sudden you're at the end of the season, you're on this 5-game losing streak because your offense has let you down again. And people want to talk about how poorly the defense played, as part of that stretch. But we know that complementary football is huge for a defense. If your offense isn't protecting you, protecting field position, protecting the amount of time that you're on the field during a football game, it's going to be really, really hard for you. And when your offense isn't playing well, it's really hard for the defense to show up knowing that the offense isn't going to give you anything. So they're in purgatory again, not good enough to get a good pick. They spend all their money on defense, so they can't really afford to go out and get a quarterback. And if you do, now you can't get any weapons to support him. Deontay Johnson went out the door, and obviously he's been in and out of a lot of doors this year. Pickens is a head case, and so you got to wonder, and I'm actually not sure who the GM is in Pittsburgh, but you probably got to start looking at him as well. And it might be time for a change in Pittsburgh in its entirety, but what you can't do is continue down this path of beating the bad teams in the regular season, and then anytime you front up against a good team, you just can't win. Ravens game was a fluke. I'm not on the, Mike Tomlin needs to be fired train, but something needs to change. And you need a stronger offensive voice in the building, period.
Yeah. How do I say this? Like, it's really hard to fire a coach after they get to the playoffs. It just is. I mean, even Belichick, right, was easier to fire than Mike Tomlin is right now, because Belichick flamed out. The end of his time in New England was not good. Like, it's really hard, I think, to fire a guy like Tomlin, who everyone loves in Pittsburgh. He's a mainstay, and just had a fairly successful year, even ended with 5 losses in a row. I think Omar Khan, the general manager, should be under fire and under a lot of scrutiny right now. I think optically Pittsburgh's just not going to fire Mike Tomlin. They're just not. They're going to keep him until he basically wants to be done there. The same way like a Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech or something, like where you let the guy walk into the sunset however he wants. Truly with Mike Tomlin, though, like I think it's clear he hit his ceiling, and it's not that I don't love the guy. It's not that I think he's a great coach. I would kill to play for Mike Tomlin or even work under him. Like, I'd love to be on his staff. I think he's just a guy, a quality dude who really cares and has built a good culture. Needing a bigger offensive presence is really obvious in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that can happen under Mike Tomlin. He's a defensive guy. He's an old school coach that his style worked well in the 90s and the early 2000s. His style doesn't really work in today's NFL the same way it used to. And honestly, I feel very similar to Belichick too. Like, Belichick's style his approach to coaching and how he wants to win games, I don't think translates well to today's NFL. And it's just a really uncomfortable problem that I don't think is going to get solved anytime soon in Pittsburgh. But it's disappointing.
Yeah, and again, part of that problem is when you play with a defense like that, typically what you see on the offensive side of the ball is a physical run team. And I would not say that the Steelers were a physical run team. Honestly, I'm not sure they had an offensive identity.
They were
I think
trying to be.
they
wanted
tried to run the football. Right. And so if that's going to be your investment, let's pay to beef up that offensive line. You know, Najee Harris obviously wasn't fitting the bill. Like Jaylen Warren can be, great in spots, but if that's going to be your offense, then you need to find a way to get that to function. And again, Arthur Smith's just riding that Derrick Henry train. Still riding it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess honestly, like looking ahead, I'm just excited for this Ravens Bills game. I know we'll talk about that in the future, but I think that's going to be like the other half of this game is the Ravens, even though I think the Steelers are actually weirdly like more interesting here because their season fell apart. And I consider myself a Steelers fan. Like that's what I'm interested. That's the half of the game I'm curious about. But the other half of the game is that
are you doing okay with your Steelers losing that?
No, because I think we had this conversation. Like we talked, like going into the final couple games, we said like, hey, Pittsburgh is going to be tested. And they failed like 3 weeks in a row. They just failed. They dropped the ball against the Ravens. They dropped the ball against Philly, and they dropped the ball against Kansas City. And then they even lost to Cincinnati to round out the end of the year. Like it was really clear though, even after, so it was at Philly, at Baltimore, and then Kansas City. 2 games into that 3-game stretch, we knew this isn't going to work. Like the quarterback's a problem. The offense isn't generating enough points. I'm an honest guy. I'm sad, but I saw it coming middle of December. I was like, this is an incoming problem.
Yeah, no doubt.
Any other playoff games like speak to you? Like for example, I don't want to linger too much on like Buffalo blew out Denver. Buffalo beat Denver 31-7. Houston beat the Chargers 32-12. My honest take here is, hey, the Chargers and Broncos making a playoff game is cool. I don't care that they won. I don't even care that they didn't really have a great showing. It's like, do you realize the accomplishment that both of them made the playoffs? We saw Sean Payton in year 2 get Denver to a playoff game. I don't care what happened. The fact that it happened is really cool. Jim Harbaugh, year 1 with a bright future in LA, they get to a playoff game. Enough said. You lost a playoff game. It wasn't your best foot forward, but I don't care because it's still a really cool story. And I think every fan of Denver and the Chargers feels good about their future, even though the way the season ended wasn't pretty. Do you agree with that take?
Yeah, both of those teams massively overachieved this year compared to what they were supposed to do, right? Jim Harbaugh takes the same roster essentially that Staley has, minus a few of the strong weapons that they had offensively, and gets them to the playoffs, granted not a win. And then similar deal with Sean Payton, eating however many dollars in cap, like $70 million in cap from the whole Russell Wilson situation, but still somehow able to make the playoffs. That's impressive. One narrative I just want to talk about is regarding Justin Herbert, and everybody just up in arms about Justin Herbert can't get it done. He's not a winner, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to continue to move the goalpost for Justin Herbert here, but this is his first year with competent coaching. And in his first year with competent coaching, what happened? His number one target was a over-targeted slot receiver, right? And again, you get to the playoffs, what are teams going to do? They're going to try and take away what you do best, right? They took away the run game. The Chargers this year had to play a very specific way in order to win. Airing it out is not what they want to do. They don't have guys to air the football out to. They wanted to run the ball. Houston took that away. And then you got to deal with Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson Jr., and Autry coming at you now that you have to throw the football. It was just a recipe for disaster. And then obviously once the end of the game started to approach, things really weren't going right. Herbert throws an interception. And then even on the touchdown that they do score, they still somehow give points to the Texans. So you're right. It wasn't their best foot forward. But I'm giving Justin Herbert, like me personally, one more year so long as he has a number one wide receiver to throw the football to.
I'm looking at a headline. Apparently, so Rex Ryan, future coach of the Jets.
Oh my gosh. I've never seen somebody want the Jets job so bad.
I thank God someone wants that job. But I guess here's what he said today with Jordan Love. He said Jordan Love has elite skills, but he's not an elite quarterback. So he's got elite talent, but he's not an elite quarterback. I would say the same about Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's skill set is incredible. Like from a talent perspective, Herbert belongs in the conversation with Josh Allen and Lamar and Patrick Mahomes from like a sheer ability standpoint, from a result standpoint, from a delivering in big moments, from a, he's not an elite quarterback. He's not delivered or played the way that Allen, Mahomes, and
Burrow,
Jackson have, or throw Burrow in there too. Like he's not an elite quarterback, but he's got the skill set to become one if he keeps improving. Is kind of the honest take about Justin Herbert. I think that's fair. Like I think he's really talented. He's not at the top of the NFL, but he still could be, and I've got an open mind about that. And I'm curious what happens when you give Herbert more help and better players around him. Like think of the receiving core Joe Burrow has. Think of the coaching that Mahomes had his entire career. I think Lamar is just special. I mean, he's had a great coach.
Lamar's different.
But like you can't even compare Lamar to anyone because he turned so many bad plays. Actually, I think Lamar and Jaden Daniels have a similar skill set where like so many times they're dead to rights, the play is over, and they just will their way to a first down by making something happen with their legs. Like I don't like how much Jaden Daniels gets compared to Lamar, but the truth is like there is a parallel there with their ability to just make defenses wrong and will their way to a first down in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
Is that fair though? My take on Herbert, that like elite skill set, not elite quarterback.
I have a tough time saying he's not an elite quarterback, but it's also hard to argue based on, again, the production and the wins.
I just think to be in that elite class, like you have to have playoff wins. You have to have a lot. Like you have to be consistently
outside of 1 year for Joe Burrow. But again, I don't want to go down that route of comparison because I'm taking Joe Burrow every single time there.
Yeah.
Just again, I want to see him have an elite wide receiver one. Like at any point, right? Pat had when he came into the league, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. That's a massive win. Josh Allen, as soon as he got Stephon Diggs, right? That was absolutely massive for him and his career, right? Lamar Jackson, again, he's a little bit different because of the way he makes plays. But when he has better receivers, he's a better quarterback, just like anybody is. Again, that's why I want to give him 1 year with a wide receiver one. I'm not sure who that wide receiver is. I don't think it'll be T. Higgins, like a lot of people have talked about. But if they can get somebody in the building who can consistently catch passes, I mean, again, this guy got what's his name, Quentin Johnston, to have the best year of his career. A guy that was labeled a bust.
Did Herbert do that, or did Harbaugh do that? You know what I mean? Like
Herbert threw him the football in a place where he could catch it. That's all Herbert.
That's not a guaranteed catch, by the way. You hit him in the right spot.
And that's what I'm saying. And again, the Chargers were top 5 in the league in drops this year. Mm-hmm. And you want to know who their company was? The Browns.
I think Green Bay was in that conversation.
Yeah, Green Bay. Green Bay was number 4. Who else was in there? Let me see. The Browns, the Jets, the Packers, and the Giants. It's like, that's not good company. Those other teams aren't playoff teams outside of the Packers, right? So if he's getting this team with a team that doesn't have a legitimate wide receiver one, but they're leading the league in drops, that's pretty impressive quarterbacking to me.
I gotta ask how like I totally wrote off the Jets like months ago. The minute like I stopped watching Jets games entirely. My favorite podcast, shout out to, there's a show called Sacred Symbols. It's a video game podcast. It's the only podcast I listen to on the planet. I like video games. It's like my way to listen to it. The host of that show is like a huge Jets fan. He watches the Jets every week. And he's like, yeah, we got receivers that are bricks for hands. And I'm like, you're a games guy. That can't be true, right? Like but you got Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson. Like, how is it possible the Jets are second in drops? But it's like, no, he's right. They got 40 drop passes. The only other team that's worse is the Browns with 48. Like, how did the Jets pull that off? That's crazy. I don't even know how that's possible to have Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson and still be second in drops in the NFL. I guess I should have watched more Jets games, although I'm not going to apologize because that sounds like it was miserable.
Yeah, I'm curious how. Actually, yeah, I'm also curious how they have that many drops.
There's definitely a story there, right? Like, Maybe it's worth making a video about like the drops, because like how do you have those two names and that many drops? I don't know.
Interesting. We'll have to take a look at that.
There's a story there, right? Like,
so that's why I would like Justin Herbert to have just another year, because in the years when he was, having a top 3 offense in the league and scoring 30 plus points a game, he had a defense giving up 30 plus points a game, kind of like Joe Burrow this year. Yeah. But nobody's sitting here saying that Joe Burrow sucks just because his defense let him down for essentially an entire year. So again, if we can just give him, again, as long as he has a wide receiver 1, and maybe that's just my Oregon Duck heart going out to him, I still think he's elite.
So I think I would actually push back and say, man, he's not elite, but the jury's out. Like, he's got time to change my mind. Currently, though, you can't put Justin Herbert in the same category as Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, and Josh Allen. You just can't.
Those guys are S tier. They're super tier. They're super.
Okay, we're doing that. Like,
now you're
moving
that.
the goalposts to like,
no,
you got
I'm not
S tier,
moving the
then elite, then
I'm
good.
just saying there's only a couple of guys that are truly worth. Yes, the 50
they're the elite
million.
Special few.
No, they're the Superman. They're the Supermen. They're unbelievable.
No, but then I just think you're okay.
You could put Pat on the Titans, and they would be a Super Bowl contender.
Let's have this conversation.
Josh Allen
Nathan,
on the Titans, they'd be a Super Bowl contender.
He's not a top tier. Whatever the top one is, however you want to label it, Herbert's not in that conversation. He's in the second tier with Jared Goff and whoever's Jordan Love and those people.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, he's just not in the top.
He's in the tier just below with the talent that matches just above.
Yeah, but whatever is below that elite group,
and Bo Nix is right there,
on, dude.
And Marcus Mariota is right there.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, there's a special tier for Oregon Ducks quarterbacks, and that's
Joey Harrington. By the way,
it's not like it's not vertical. There's like a sidebar over here, and it's all the Ducks quarterbacks, and then so they're not even in the same conversation because they're not. Sorry, my bad. I didn't realize we were doing that.
Ducks fly high, baby.
Here's the thing. We earn points on groceries, travel, and practically everything else we buy. But we should also be earning points on rent. That's one of our biggest monthly expenses. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high-value points on rent and around their neighborhood. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/SOS. That's joinbilt.com/SOS. Make sure you use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/SOS to start earning points on your rent payments today. joinbilt.com/SOS. Joinbuilt.com/SOS. No you. Built, BILT. The Packers game. Do you have anything you want to say about that? I don't mean to skip that game. I'm just not interested in it. I just wasn't very. The Packers are banged up. The Eagles were dominant up front. I mean, I'm just curious. Is there anything worth talking about to you about that game?
The only thing that's concerning to me is just the passing game. It didn't look great, but it was efficient. And it ultimately they ended up winning the game. I think Jalen Hurts ended up having 2 touchdown passes, or maybe only 1.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that they have the best roster in football right now, and defensively they're playing at such a high level, and they've hit on so many defensive draft picks over the past 3 years. You boil that down to Jordan Love playing a little bit banged up as he has all year. Receivers kind of being down, defense missing Jair Alexander. There really just wasn't a chance for the Packers to win that game unless Jordan Love had an all-time game. I kind of feel like he's turning into, or looks like, a Jay Cutler guy. Big, strong arm, will sit back, let it fly. I wouldn't say as temperamental as Jay Cutler was, but in terms of playing quarterback, he's a guy who'll sit back and sling it. But some games it's going to look good. Other games it's not going to look great.
Jordan Love is Justin Herbert. really talented and hasn't shown us much.
No.
You take issue. I know why,
No.
but I put them in a similar conversation.
Justin Herbert's breaking records.
What for most
He's breaking
years without a
statistical
playoff win or
records.
something?
No. But I take Justin Herbert over Jordan Love so quickly.
Sure.
And I saw an interesting stat also about Jordan Love's passer rating in play action versus straight dropbacks, and his completion percentage in straight dropbacks is sub 60. It's almost like he needs play action. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I know we're talking about the game here. But yeah, just Eagles were a better team, better roster, outmatched. And again, their offense is working with Saquon Barkley. Vic Fangio's got the defense playing mean and nasty. Say what you will about Nick Sirianni, and I actually had to sit down and come to grips with this today. He's had 3 completely different sets of coordinators the past 3 years, and they're doing nothing but winning games. 1 year to the Super Bowl, next year to the playoffs, kind of an embarrassing exit, but the playoffs nonetheless. And then this year they look like they've got a great shot to get to the Super Bowl again. So say what you want, but he knows how to get everybody rowing in the right direction, and that's impressive.
I appreciate that. Nick Sirianni appears to have hired good people and then gotten out of the way. Like the Vic Fangio hire is incredible. I think
So
that's been. And what happened? Here's the question about Philly. Jalen Hurts was really efficient. Kind of a quiet day, like 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, not a lot of yards. They leaned heavily on Saquon. 25 carries, had 119 yards rushing for Saquon. So he didn't have to do a lot throwing the football. If that moment comes, can he? If you're playing the Lions in the NFC title game and Saquon, the Saquon Barkley card isn't working, can you win a different way on offense? That's the only question in Philly. Defense is great. They run the ball well. They got, I would argue, the best running back in football. And the passing game is efficient and competent. I don't know why they would need to, but if needed, can Jalen Hurts throw for 400 yards and win him a game? I don't know. I don't know that they're even going to have to answer that question. They might win a Super Bowl this year and not even need that once. I think it's on the table and possible. But I don't know if they can win that. That's the only style of game I'm not 100% confident Jalen Hurts can give us.
He went toe-to-toe with Mahomes in the Super Bowl a couple years. Arguably outplayed him in that Super Bowl. I've got confident that if the light gets that bright for Jalen Hurts, that he can sling the rock. I know the past couple years have looked different since that shoulder injury, but I've got some faith that he'll be able to pull it out.
He threw for 300 yards once this year. They won 15-12. He had an interception and 311 yards. Ugly game early in the year against New Orleans. Other than that, he threw for 290 against Pittsburgh at the end of the year. He really didn't. He had an efficient season where he took care of the football. 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, not a ton of yards. Just a really, again, they never needed him to win the game with his arm all year.
Saquon had 2,000 yards. That tells you what the focus was on the offense. Jalen, we're not going to make you use your arm. Use your legs when you can. We got the tush push. Add those touchdowns to his docket, obviously, and then we're going to lean on Saquon Barkley.
But is it enough to win a Super Bowl? Is that formula enough to beat Josh Allen, the Bills, Lamar Jackson, or Kansas City? Can you win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts? Maybe yes. I'm not sure it's no. I don't know yet. I'm not, and I don't see any limitations like that with other quarterbacks in this playoff. In these matchups left, and so I don't even know if it's a limitation. I don't know if that's the right word. It's just interesting. Can that gear be shifted into if necessary? And I just don't know the answer to that.
Can anybody win a Super Bowl right now that's not Pat Mahomes? Because it went Patrick, Brady, Patrick, and then it was Stafford, right, veteran guy in LA, and then it was Brady, and then it was Mahomes 2 more times. There's there's not a lot of quarterbacks that can win a Super Bowl. Let's just start there. So I think that they've got the defense to support them, though, and that's probably the biggest difference that they didn't have. They had a great defense, obviously, a couple years ago. But this defense just seems a little scarier.
Yeah. No, I think that's spot on. Best game of the weekend is Washington beating Tampa 23-20. I told everyone at work, by the way, I was like, look, guys, there's a lot of football this weekend. If you're going to watch one game, watch this game on Sunday Night Football. It delivered. It was great. 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels. It was awesome. I think kind of a crucial mistake was a fumble they were trying to do a fly sweep at the end of the fourth quarter. Baker fumbles. It's credit a fumble by him. It's just missed timing. Gave Washington ball on the 13-yard line in the red zone in great positioning. I think it cost Tampa the game, honestly, as brutal as that is. I just gotta say I had fun. Like, this was such a fun game to watch. It was awesome. What'd you make of this game?
The only way you were going to beat Tampa this year is to keep the ball out of their hands, and that's a high-powered offense. And that's what Washington did. In the second half, Tampa Bay only had 3 possessions. So you keep the ball out of their hands, and then on one of those possessions, they fumble, right? Before they can put points on the board, and they're driving, and they're down there. That was the difference in the game, right? 1 possession. The Commanders didn't turn the ball over at all during that game, and then the Buccaneers did late. And again, that ended up being the difference. They made it tough for them to run the ball consistently. Like, Bucky had 17 carries for 77 yards. They took away a large portion of the pass game, right? That runs through Mike Evans. Like, yes, he's still got, his yards and his touchdowns, but nothing else was really able to get going down the field. And I credit that to Dan Quinn taking away those deeper shots, those deep balls over the middle, to whether that was Jalen McMillan or Mike Evans that we had seen this year, or kind of sneaking it in that lower hole to Cade Otton. It just wasn't there. They took away everything that Baker wanted to do. And was he, I think, like 18 for 23 or something pretty efficient, but he wasn't pushed.
Baker was 15 for 18.
15 for 18.
185 yards, 2 touchdowns. Here's what another stat that stands out, though. Mike Evans, 7 catches, 92 yards on 7 targets with a touchdown. So, like, the game was Mike Evans. Like, that was their, and rightfully so. They couldn't guard him. I forget the name of the corner that was trying to defend him, but, like, he had no business trying to guard Mike Evans one-on-one.
But that was okay. I'll let Mike Evans have 92 yards and a touchdown all day if the next pass catcher only has 2 catches, right? So outside of those balls to Mike Evans, they kept everything relatively short, right? A couple other passes I think went for 20 yards, but again, like the big thing is they stopped those explosive plays that Tampa Bay was having. They limited how much they had the football, and then Jaden Daniels did what he needed to do to ultimately win the game. I think the stats say that he played a stellar game, and he showed that he can kind of play more of that game manager role, but then make that extra special play when he needs to, which is really promising for the Commanders. But again, I just think the story is they didn't let Tampa push the ball downfield. Again, the completion percentage would indicate that, Baker Mayfield had a strong game, but at the end of the day, only having 186 yards tells you that the ball's not really going downfield. It's checkdowns, it's swings, it's some quick outs, and being able to keep that all in front of you is a credit to Dan Quinn and what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I'll say Marshawn Lattimore had no business trying to guard Mike Evans one-on-one.
They've been guarding each other one-on-one for years.
There's a lot of history there.
I was going to say Sainstro, but then I forgot that they acquired Lattimore.
He was in New Orleans for a long time. They played each other twice a year and hated each other. I'll say, man, I got to say this before we go. Like, Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator in Tampa, had a great year, and I think really was awesome. I was sad to see Tampa lose because this game could have gone either way. It was really neck and neck. The late fumble by Baker, I think, really was the dagger that crushed Tampa's hopes. And what happened was, and I think credit to Washington, like, they get the ball late, and they just didn't get the ball back. They're like, you're not going to get another opportunity. Jaden Daniels made a bunch of plays to ice the game at an awesome, conversion. And it's like that. I don't know, man. The margins were razor thin in this game. It was really evenly matched. And the truth is, like, the quarterback who had the fewest mistakes won. And it was just, I don't know, man. I loved this one. It was dramatic. It was close. It was unfortunate. I would have liked to see Tampa get one more shot, but there was like I'm trying to remember, this late first down that was got by Washington. It was like 3rd and 1, and they get a first down, but I think Jaden Daniels ran for it.
Jaden Daniels was almost tackled for like a 3 or 4 yard loss and just shimmied his way out and was able to get the first down.
And that allowed them to run out the rest of the clock and win with the last second field goal as time expired. Like, and
which
that's Jaden, man. Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
true.
this close.
True. That's part of the fun, though. I mean, this game was awesome. It really was neck and neck. I was going to say one more thing. I want to read. You sent me something, and I think we should read it. We'll give a shout at Jarrett Bailey on. Gosh, do we call it Twitter or X? I hate that I have to ask
I'm
that question.
not going to lie to you. I still say Twitter.
Yeah, I think everyone does. Here, I think I was going to use this to roast Mike Tomlin, but it's kind of too late. So let's use it to praise Dan Quinn instead. Since Mike Tomlin's last playoff win, Dan Quinn took the Falcons to a Super Bowl. He was fired by Atlanta. He spent 3 years as a Cowboys defensive coordinator. He got hired by the Washington Commanders, and now Dan Quinn is taking the Commanders to a playoff game and won. That is so cool that Dan Quinn turned around Washington in just 1 year. Big part of this is Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator. Another big part, you got the quarterback right. When you get the quarterback right, everything is so much easier.
Right.
Still, though, it's a huge, if you're a Washington fan, what a awesome, like Brian Simpson came on the show one time. Brian Simpson, comedian, huge fan of Washington. I should text him. I wonder how Brian Simpson feels today. Because when I spoke to him last, this is back before the old owner, he was like, dude, it's being a Washington fan is the most hopeless, worst thing ever. Like, I don't even know why I root for this team because I'm emotionally invested, but I don't even know why I root for this team anymore. Guys like him deserved that win. Like, loyal people who have watched garbage for years. And I'm just happy for Washington and their fan base. I think it's really, really cool.
It is. And that tells you also how important it is, not just to have great players and great coaches, but sometimes you need ownership to change, right? Like things truly do come from the top down. And so to see a complete overhaul of that organization, got a facelift, got a BBL, got a nose job, all the stuff, right? And now they come out and they look entirely different. It was just impressive.
Yeah, it was.
Even if they lost that game, what a great season for the Commanders.
Yeah. Let's look ahead, man, because Washington plays Detroit next week at Detroit. Does their road end there? Like, it's hard to imagine them winning that football game. And maybe Jaden Daniels has some magic and Detroit has a bad game, but I think their season's over next week in Detroit, right?
Yeah, kind of like the Texans last year, had a big playoff win against the Browns and then they ran into the Ravens. Like sometimes you just run into, the big guy on the block. And I do anticipate not the Steelers, I'm sorry. So sorry. Definitely not the Steelers. I do anticipate the Lions maybe bullying them out of this game. But again, with Jaden Daniels, a guy who can extend plays and frustrate a defense, it might be tough. I will say the Lions certainly play through the whistle. Jaden Daniels, if you want to get out of that pocket, Brian Branch is coming. And he's going to hit you pretty hard.
Sorry, I went to clear my throat. I should have muted it. I didn't mean to cause this awkward moment where you're like, what the...
I didn't think it was awkward.
Sorry.
Now you made it awkward. Now I feel awkward.
Yeah, I had to acknowledge. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you look at the roster and you look at how these teams are playing. The Commanders have kind of been squeaking them out throughout this year. There's been a number of times where their season could look entirely different if it wasn't for a few last-minute plays or last-second drives. So sometimes the ball just bounces your way, and then there's other times where the big bully is on the block. So I expect the Lions to win.
Yeah, Washington at Detroit is fun. Houston, Kansas City is also interesting. I think it's another game that feels predetermined. I'd be surprised. They played each other recently, like a month ago, roughly. And Kansas City won by 8. I think 27-19. What do you expect from that game? Again, I think Kansas City wins. And the story is, hey, Houston won a playoff game. That's really cool. Kind of like Washington. It's like, hey, you won a playoff game. I'm really happy for where you are as a franchise, but now you run into a buzzsaw of a much better team, the number 1 seed in your conference. Do you see a similar parallel between the Washington game and the Houston game this coming weekend?
Yeah, I think as far as a predetermined outcome with the victor, yes. But we know that the Chiefs do have a tough time blowing teams out as of recent. There's no reason that they can't jump out, take control of this game, and maybe with Hollywood Brown back for a couple of weeks plus the bye week, maybe he's a little bit more integrated, and maybe they've got some more wrinkles that Andy Reid hasn't shown off between Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce. So there's some weapons on that team. Isaiah Pacheco, back a little bit healthy. Kareem Hunt, he's going to be refreshed after having taken on a pretty heavy load throughout the course of this season. So their offense could look entirely different and like nothing that's been on tape this year. So that's kind of what concerns me for the Texans defense. That hasn't been amazing, but they've been able to get pressure on the quarterback with Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. So if they can get some pressure, maybe force a turnover out of Pat, that'll keep the game close. But I think you're right. We've got a predetermined Chiefs probably win this. And I just don't think that Stroud is playing at the level he was last year. Nico Collins is hurt. You don't have Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell, I can't remember if he's banged up or out. I don't want to be incorrect there, but the bottom line being is CJ Stroud not playing at the same level as he did last year. There's a lack of weapons. You're not going to be able to lean on the run game with Joe Mixon while you've got Karlaftis and Chris Jones up there up front for the Chiefs. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, no Tank Dell, no Stephon Diggs. You're going to have Nico Collins, John Mechie, and Robert Woods.
Yeah, which isn't a bad receiving core.
Yeah,
but I don't think CJ Stroud is making the same level of plays he was last year, and that's going to end up causing them to fall short.
It's really clear to me that this would be a tough game even if Houston was at 100%, right? With everyone available and CJ Stroud playing great. He's been playing kind of not great, and don't even have their entire receiving core. It's really hard to see that and know that, and then imagine Houston wins this football game against currently the number one favorite to win the Super Bowl. I think it have to be in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they're Kansas City's the favorite right now. Just if there is a way for it to win, they are going to need a defensive touchdown, and they're going to need a game-breaking drive, meaning like a 70-plus yard touchdown play. That is the only way that they win this game. They're not going to ground and pound the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not going to be able to play the hold on, like let's try and keep the ball out of Pat's hands. Pat can score in 1 minute, and he can score in 10 minutes. Depends on how you need him to do it. So the only way, again, that the Houston Texans are going to be able to escape with that game is a defensive touchdown and just a big game-changing play in the second half.
Dude, I got to say this. I noticed Case Keenum he got hurt. He's the third string quarterback in Houston. He's on the IR. I imagine he's got a foot injury. That's why he's on the season-ending injured reserve. He's a coach basically in Houston, I would imagine. Like he's kind of the Josh McCown level guy, the veteran guy who hangs around and helps Davis Mills and CJ Stroud. I really wonder. I'm only starting going on this tangent here, but I wonder: does Case Keenum ever want to coach? Because he certainly made enough money to never work again when he's done in the NFL. But he's kind of got a coaching role right now, and he could have just walked away and parted ways with Houston once he had the foot injuries out for the year. He's clearly invested in football, likes being around the team. I think he must inference just by seeing his position. He must like helping the young quarterbacks, and I wonder if he ever wants to leverage that into a full-time gig coaching. I think that's really fascinating to me. Whether Case Keenum's got a future, whether it's broadcasting or coaching or something, and I just. Carson Palmer retired and kind of just said he fucked off forever. I wonder if Case Keenum will try harder to stay involved in football and not just, resides in the mountains somewhere with all his money.
Yeah, I think that we've seen an increase in backup quarterbacks saying like, hey, like I can still help the team, whether that's in the backup role or officially being entitled as a coach. We're seeing more guys like stay around and be around for these young quarterbacks. So Case Keenum, looking at places you could go to, maybe you go to New York and you pair yourself up with whatever quarterback is coming in. Maybe you go to New England and, you try and make Drake May your understudy. There's a lot of opportunity for these guys to do that. Maybe the guys that had it cerebrally, but maybe didn't have the talent to match it. That could be something that we see or continue to see a lot more of. But yeah, you're right. Case Keenum certainly doesn't have to work anymore. But sometimes when you love the game, you love the game. You just want to be around it. You want to be around the guys, the locker room, the travel, being with everybody. There's something special to it. And it just doesn't seem like he's ready to give that up. Most guys aren't.
Dude, retiring sounds awful to me. Like I really would struggle with nothing to do. I mean, I honestly, I'd always have something to do because I'm just a creative person. But backup quarterback in the NFL, not a bad gig. Like that sounds fun to me. I would kill for that role.
Who is it from Blue Mountain State? Moran?
Yeah, Alex Moran.
Alex, I mean, what could be better?
Dude, you know what's crazy about that show is Thad Castle was the guy's name, the linebacker. That actor plays Jack Reacher now. Like he's such a different actor. Like it's
what
crazy
a rebrand.
Yeah, go watch Jack Reacher and then realize it's the same actor and like totally different characters. It's hilarious.
That's going to be hard. It's like I can't unsee Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. Like whatever role he is, like that's
No,
what he's
dude,
going to be. Or like,
he embodies Jack Reacher. He's amazing. It's like season 3, I think, comes out in February. Can't wait. I can't get my hands off that shit. I get obsessed and I watch it like immediately all at once when it comes out. I'll probably take a day off work for real, like just watch all the way through it.
who was Jack Reacher before? Jim
Tom
Halpert's
Cruise
not
did
the
it.
name.
Tom
No,
Cruise did it.
Jack Reacher.
You're thinking Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan. Okay, yeah, I'm mixing that up because the
Yeah.
Reacher movies were definitely Tom Cruise. Okay,
Yeah. But my favorite book series ever is the Reacher series, and he's like a superhero. He's massive. He beats people up. He solves crimes. It's cool. It's interesting.
I'm gonna have to read those books.
Dude, there's like 25, and you'll have the best time ever.
Better than Nancy
Next time
Drew?
you're on a beach, it's like the best beach reading. It's like just fun. It's like an action movie in your head. It's awesome.
All right.
Question for you. Can the Rams beat the Eagles this weekend? Is that even possible?
I want to say absolutely not.
I feel that way too.
No.
I'm like, I don't know if I'm crazy to feel that way.
No, I don't think that they can. Did they have a matchup this year?
Let's find out. I mean, I didn't think the Rams were going to take it to, the Vikings, but that's explainable given the Viking struggles, against the Lions. I can get into my head. Like I can explain how that happened. I don't know how I can explain a way for them to beat them.
Yeah, I really thought the Vikings had a chance to get to the NFC Championship. Like that's how high I was on the Vikings and Sam Darnold having his recovery. But, I just don't think that the Rams are deep enough to beat a team like Philly.
Okay, I remember the biggest weakness of the Rams. Do you remember what it is?
Their run defense?
Yeah, their interior run defense. Saquon Barkley had 255 yards when Philly played the Rams earlier this year. They beat them 37-20. That was a game he went off. Had 2 touchdowns. So, I'm going to say is a mismatch, actually. Given the Rams' weakness and the strength of Philly, this one's a blowout. This one's like, it's hard for me to imagine. It's like the worst possible matchup for the Rams, given what Philly's good at and what the Rams are bad at. It's like, ooh, it's a mismatch there.
Yeah, and again, I only feel more confident in this offensive line with Cam Jurgens now having been the center of that interior. Now, granted, the Rams O-line has not O-line, D-line has probably gotten better, more comfortable playing within, but I mean, the physicality of Lane Johnson, Cam Jurgens, Jordan Mailata, like they are so strong up front. Like there's a reason that we know their names as offensive linemen. It's because they're the real deal up front. And again, you couple that with being able to take advantage of the back end. I don't think that the Rams have excellent corners either. You leave A.J. Brown one-on-one trying to cover that box, all of a sudden he has a big game. I know that he's been itching to have a big game and he's been frustrated. So while this could be a very, very heavy dose of Saquon Barkley, we could also finally see another big game from A.J. Brown.
I'm trying to find the team that gave up the most rushing yards this year. It was...
It's got to be the Giants.
Rams are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 from the worst. So, not great. Not great at all. I feel like I'm reading this wrong. I feel like, what am I doing wrong? Postseason stats. That's why. I can't find the regular season stats, so I give up. But yeah, this is funny. I can't find what number I'm looking for. Anyway, so I think we're in agreement. Rams game, it's not great. Ravens Bills is a really, really outstanding matchup. One that I can't wait for. Game in Buffalo, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Although it's Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, it's also Derrick Henry. I think his name has to come up in this conversation. I'm not going to make a prediction here. I don't know who wins. I just think it's going to be fun. My prediction is it's going to be kind of like that Tampa Washington game last weekend where it's going to be close. We're not going to know who's going to win until the fourth quarter, maybe the final drive or final play. It's going to be really close and interesting. Do you agree is that your expectation for this game, Ravens at Buffalo?
My expectation is that it would be close. You've got two, high caliber teams with two great quarterbacks. What I honestly think we'll see, and what I hope we see from the Ravens, is this doesn't need to be Lamar versus Josh. We don't need to be trying to go shot for shot, can for can, whatever. What we need to see is Derrick Henry dominate the game, right? The Bills don't have an amazing rush defense. Just lean on Derrick Henry and then Lamar on those third and maybe sevens. So you get in a third and long even later. That's where you make your magic happen. And that's the difference, right? Josh Allen is going to have to play his best football. The Ravens have one of the best run defenses in the league right now. It's going to be on his arm to make it happen. And on the flip side, Derrick Henry needs to control the game on the ground and Lamar to make the plays necessary. I don't want Lamar sitting back trying to do more than he has to, because he doesn't this year. This team is set up for him to be special when it matters. Just lean on Derrick Henry, bruise up that Bills defense, and make Josh Allen have to score every single drive. That's what you got to do.
Can I challenge you a little bit?
Let's have a conversation.
I feel like you've said in the past you want them to unleash Lamar Jackson. You don't want them to limit Lamar Jackson. You don't. I guess I'm hearing a back and forth that I agree with what you just said. By the way, like, yeah, it should be a Derrick Henry game. However, I've also heard you say, like, you don't want a game where you shackle Lamar Jackson, you don't let him loose. So which is it? Do you remember saying that? Do you remember feeling that way? Because I don't think you're wrong, like what you just said. I just also know that it would be unfortunate if you felt like, hey, you lost a playoff game in a meaningful moment, and Lamar Jackson was held back from really being allowed to be special.
The bottling of Lamar Jackson is when they ask him to throw the ball 40 times when he shouldn't, right? Because you have a running back like Derrick Henry, so now you maybe only have to throw it 20 to 25 times. So when I talk about holding back Lamar Jackson, it's when you sit here and ask him to just keep dropping back and throwing the football. While he is more than capable of doing that, that's not the best recipe for them to win this football game in particular. So when we talk about unleashing Lamar Jackson, it's yes, you send him in motion, right? In Derrick Henry and the Wildcat. That was a great wrinkle that we saw last week. You allowed Derrick Henry to set the pace for the offense, and then Lamar Jackson can be that dagger, that, uppercut that just catches you off guard, where you're like, gosh dang it, like, we're sitting here focusing all this attention trying to stop Derrick Henry, but we just let Lamar slip out the back door. Or we had him dead to rights on third and long, and now he's running for 25 yards. Or he finds, somebody down the field. And it's going to be more difficult without Zay Flowers, which is why I'd like them to focus on giving that ball to Derrick Henry. But it's not that we need Lamar Jackson to be supplemental to Derrick Henry. It's we need him to play complementary. I don't want him to get caught, like I was saying with Josh Allen, trying to go tit for tat, shot for shot. Because if you do that, I do think he's going to lose. And that means he's going to throw the ball 30 plus times, which is not what you want. So again, back to what you're saying, like, bottling in Lamar is asking him to play in a way that doesn't suit him. Unlocking Lamar is allowing him to play free and be the playmaker that he is for the team.
Yeah.
You making sense?
Yeah. No, I just go back to this feeling that I think it's going to be really close and fun. And if it's not really close and really fun, I'm going to be, hi, cat. The audience can't see your cat because it wasn't quite enough of we cut off the sides of the screen. But I saw the cat. I know the cat's like right by the camera. It's hilarious.
She's on my desk right now. She is up to no bueno.
So I'm getting a text from, I'm telling you, dude, customers reaching out, asking for help. I care.
Tell me what you think about this game, though. Like, I know you said you think it's going to be close, but what can we expect to see from both quarterbacks?
I think what's going to happen, as has happened all year, is Josh Allen has to be Superman. I mean, that's the formula to win for Buffalo is, and I love Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator, and we I guess we've had the James Cook game or two this year, but it has seemed like when they win in big moments, it's when they lean on Josh Allen and let him be Superman.
And also, real quick, let's not forget, the Ravens already beat the doors off him earlier this year. Like, that was the thing that happened. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the Ravens are probably better on paper and should be the favorite to win this game, even though they're the away team. I do wonder if playing in Buffalo, It's hard to not imagine it makes a difference. You're in the cold environment. You're at home. It's loud. Like literally, communication is going to
Baltimore's
be
in the
difficult.
cold.
Yeah, but it's the communication could be difficult when you got a home crowd influencing your ability to have conversations.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm definitely not worried about Lamar handling a big moment. He's not Sam Darnold. He's gonna be intimidated by the moment. I also think I'm getting sick. I think if the Bills win, it's going to be through Josh Allen. I think it's obvious, but they're going to have to lean on him. Like if they want to get to a Super Bowl, he's going to have a Herculean effort the next 2 weeks, beating what I assume is going to be Kansas City next and Baltimore here in this moment. And it's really Lamar is awesome, but he's got a lot of help. The question's Josh Allen. The question is like, what kind of performance does Josh Allen give us? And is there a chance Josh Allen does everything right and then doesn't get the ball in the fourth quarter,
Right.
and isn't even allowed to like make it happen? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I got a customer who doesn't have heat in their baby's room, and it's like, man, that's anyway. It's 10 o'clock.
Looks like the baby's sleeping in your room.
Yeah, it never ends, man. Although I'm not gonna lie, if I had a 9-month-old, I'd have a hard time putting him like monitor or not. Like I think I'm sleeping with my newborn for like a year or two, to be honest. Like it'd be hard. I know it's somewhat you got to give them their own room, but I'm gonna be like it's gonna be hard to like not have that thing. I'm just afraid of that. I'm afraid of like problems. Even a baby monitor, I'm like, I know you're alive if you're here. I can't. You know what I mean? Like I just can't.
I can check if you're good.
Yeah. I'm the dad who's gonna be like, yep, still breathing. Just staring like really. I'm like
still
2
good.
inches away from his face, like still going. How do I transition this? No, I mean I just really want a great game. I really hope for a good game, and I think there's going to be more asked of Josh Allen because I think he's got less help, and that's an interesting part of this.
Yeah,
but that's all I really got. I mean, I think Kansas City wins, Detroit wins, Philly wins. I think those are blowouts, and then the big question mark is Ravens and Bills. I'm just not really sure what's going to happen in that game.
Yeah.
If anyone wins a blowout, though, it's the Ravens are better. I mean, they would do if one team wins by 20 points, it's the Ravens, not Buffalo, in my opinion.
Yeah. Again, they already beat the doors off them this year. One of the things that Joe Brady likes to do sometimes is lean on that run game. The Ravens have one of the best rush defenses in the league this year. They've got linebackers playing at a high level. So again, it's going to take Josh Allen's best effort with his arm and probably with his legs, like we saw against Kansas City, to win that game. But if you've got Derrick Henry bleeding the clock, getting real physical with your defense towards the end of the game, even if you get that last second touchdown, I've got full faith in Lamar playing against a beatdown Bills defense late in the fourth quarter, going down and getting a score of his own. It'll come down to a game of time of possession, and if the Ravens win that by probably more than 7 minutes, it's going to be an ugly game.
There's one more game happening this weekend, technically, in my estimation. Do you know what it is?
The college football playoff national championship game.
Yeah, we got Ohio State playing Notre Dame in the national title game. I checked, dude. I don't mean to check out a college football playoff, but like I didn't expect these two teams in this position. And I wonder if it's popular. Like I really wonder if there's do you think, because it feels like there's no hype. Now remember, I'm a guy not on social media. So I don't know what social media is like right now, but I get the sense there's just not a lot of conversation unless you live in Ohio or live in Indiana. Is that an accurate? Do you think that this is kind of a quiet, less interesting national title from a national perspective than there have been in years past?
Yes. And honestly, by the time Oregon played, I felt like the hype was gone. And the hype was only there because it was the University of Oregon. And that's a couple rounds ago now, right?
Yeah. It's almost like it's gone on too long.
It's gone on too long. We're playing on weekdays. We're not playing on, Saturdays or Fridays or Monday. And it's just not when football is supposed to be played, coupled with this kind of weird, awkward structure that, a lot of people have voiced that they are unhappy about. And, whether the unhappiness is warranted or not, the bottom line is you're competing against, the NFL and what's going on there. NBA, they just had Christmas Day. They're now in full swing, starting to get to the second half of that season. There's just other things going on now. And the consumer is trained that after New Year's, like it's pretty much done. You've got one more game right after that being the national championship.
Yeah.
And now we're about to be more than halfway through January. Like, college football is done as far as everyone else is concerned. So they're certainly going to have to figure out a way to change that in the future.
Ratings are down 17%, apparently. So I guess we're not wrong in the belief that it seems like there's less interest. I think it'd be really cool to see Ohio State win a national title. I'm not going to lie to you. Marcus Smith is cool too, nothing against him, but
Freeman.
Marcus, right. Marcus Freeman. Thank you. I don't know how. What is that? Marcus Smith. What am I? I feel like I got that name in my head, but I don't know why. Ryan Day got so much criticism at Ohio State, where to the point like his job was in question. Like, was he going to get fired after they lost to Harbaugh last year and watching Michigan win a national title? Also, it's kind of interesting if Michigan wins a national title in 2024 and then in 2025, Ohio State does it. That really speaks to that rivalry. And
the strength of the Big Ten, which the University of Oregon won this year. Anyways.
And then lost. So
easy.
Don't forget. Everyone remembers that brutal, disappointing loss
I don't
Oregon
remember
had.
It. We've got a short memory. We're ducks.
You had to cut out part of your brain and you almost lobotomized yourself, but you don't remember it anymore. But
surgery was worth it.
Yeah. But regardless, I'd like to see Ohio State win here simply to help. I don't know why I care about this, but Ryan Day's done a good job, man. Like, he's had a really, other than losing to Michigan, basically, like, he's done a great job in his career. And I think deserves some credit and respect. And if he wins a national title, he's going to get it. And I don't mind seeing a guy like that, who's won so many games already, finally get his moment to like sit in the sun and maybe like take a deep breath and not feel like his job is, on the fence whether he's going to get kept or not. Because I think it's like insane that Ryan Day is like sleeping with one eye open, not sure if he's going to be able to work at Ohio State next year. It's like, no, he should have like job security, and certainly getting a national title would do that for him.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see Ohio State win just so that Oregon ultimately lost to the national title winners, right?
And beat them. He would have beat them too.
But it also been, yeah, exactly. So who really knows? Maybe we have to play a third time to actually decide the national champion.
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
No, I think Notre Dame is a great team. And again, like Marcus Freeman has done an excellent job. And I called them frauds earlier this year. They're in the college football playoff. They're in the national championship. Obviously, they're not fraudulent. I still think their biggest concern is just Riley Leonard and their offense as a whole. Ohio State is arguably the best defense, right up there next to Notre Dame in college football. Plus, they've got the offense to back it up. That's ultimately what it's going to come down to, is the offensive production from both sides, which sounds like a really easy thing to say. But both have talented defense. Just that Ohio State offense is so max powered. And if it wasn't for a few penalties kind of slowing themselves down against Texas last week, Texas would have been obliterated. So I expect Ryan Day and Chip and the gang to kind of clean a few of those things up and get those emotions in check and maybe run away with this football game. But also, again, I would love to see Marcus Freeman, win that national title and taking over for Notre Dame when Brian Kelly was like, you can't win here, blah, blah, blah. To see him go out and do it would be pretty impressive.
Yeah, I wonder, I guess we can't go wrong because you're right. The Brian Kelly angle, like him basically being like, I'm not going to win here. I'm going to go to LSU. And then he leaves and his replacement wins a national title. That's interesting, man. It's like, I guess either option's fun. I think Ohio State's more talented, right? They got more offensive firepower, better defense. I just think they're a much better team. But I think either outcome is quite fun and an interesting story, in my opinion. Nathan's he's
apologies. That's one you got to respond to. Okay. Caught me off guard a little bit. We're good though.
We're good? Yeah,
we're good.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, can't go wrong with any one of these national title winners. Again, it would be cool to see Ohio State get it done. And also, I've got an affinity for Jeremiah Smith. Back when he was an All-American at the All-American Bowl at Adidas. There was some work that I did with him and got to spend some time sitting down with him and talking with him. And he's a really humble kid who works hard. And so on a personal level, seeing that success for him would be really cool.
Let's talk about Mike Vrable. I think we got two things left to talk about, honestly.
Vrabes.
the Patriots hired Mike Vrable, and so they got rid of one defensive coach, brought in another one. I think the right move, though. I think Mike Vrabel's awesome. I think they really part of this gives further context to when they why and when they fired Drumeo. We talked about earlier. Look, got a rookie quarterback. You can't screw that opportunity up to get it right. And they really wanted Drumeo. They felt like they missed out. Sorry, they really wanted Mike Vrabel before. They felt like they missed out. And we're like, look, no offense to Drumeo, but this is the guy we want, and we're not going to miss out on this guy. What do you make of the move? Do you like the hire? What are your thoughts on this?
I love the hire, and to me, you get the best of both worlds. If you're the Patriots, you get an extremely competent head coach and a guy who's proven that he can make a lot of things work, and he gets the right people in the building and makes right decisions. But you also get to kind of keep the Patriot way going, right? You have a guy who's won Super Bowls, who's been in that building, has a tremendous amount of respect from the top down there. So to bring him in, I think is a big win. And we call it the Patriot way, right? There was a certain way that Belichick did things. And you can kind of call it the Patriot place now, right? It's not exactly one road going one direction. It's kind of like more of like an estate, if you will, a Patriot place where it's going to be a little bit more collaborative with Mike Vrabel, but you're still going to have that strong voice that says, this is the direction we are going. You guys, as my assistants, need to help me go in this direction. And I think that obviously he's going to be, what's the right words here? Less of a dickhead when it comes to personnel. And he's a merit-based guy. And that's what I love about Mike Vrabel and coaches that function off of that. If you're the best guy, you are going to play. I don't care how much I'm paying you. I don't care what the GM or the owner is saying. The best guys are going to be on the field, and that's something you can appreciate a bit about Vrabel. And from a wide receiver's perspective, right? Like one of the first things he's talking about for Drake May is we need a big body red zone target, guys who can separate and guys who can make high contested catches. So he's made it very clear to all those receivers in the Patriot room right now, you guys either A, might not be here, or B, need to take a massive step up in order to make things successful with Drake May. And it's not because Drake May can't sling the rock, but again, if you want to be successful, you need to have a guy that you can target in the red zone, whether that's your tight end or whether that's a big-bodied wide receiver. It depends on how you want to slice it and dice it. But again, Vrabel being the guy, you get the Patriot way. He's a guy who understands what the offense needs, and obviously being a defensive mastermind, he's going to fit right in New England.
Do you think, I think I know the answer to what you're going to say here, but do you think that Mike Vrabel's familiarity with New England, he knows that organization, he played linebacker there. Kind of funny, by the way, the Patriots now, most two recent head coaches both were linebackers under Bill Belichick. That's like a weird, like interesting parallel there. But it's another guy who knows the culture, knows the building, knows the owner, has great institutional knowledge of the Patriots. Does that outweigh the fact that he's still a defensive head coach with a rookie quarterback? You got to get right. Like I would have liked an offensive head coach, Ben Johnson, for example, with Drake May would have been really interesting, right? We're not going to get that. Does that matter? The fact that he's not the guy directly working with Drake May? Because we've never seen Vrabel develop a young quarterback. It's not happened yet.
Mm-hmm. But what we've seen him do is put the right offensive system in place with the right guys around him. So taking Ryan Tannehill, Arthur Smith, Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, putting that core together on offense, right? He's seen what a big-bodied wide receiver looks like. He knows what's needed for his quarterback to be successful. And I don't want to say a similar, skill set between Tannehill and Drake May, but he knows exactly what a quarterback's going to need, and he's collaborative on that offensive side of the football, which is why Tennessee was the number one seed in the AFC for a year, and then they had another great year after that. It's offense isn't lost on him like it was Bill Belichick and maybe what it seemed like Gerard Mayer was. I think the jury's still out on how he, operated offensively. But again, like he's going to be a little bit more collaborative and open to getting the right offensive coach in there. Because that was part of the deal, right? Like that's why they fired Gerard Mayo. They didn't feel like they could get things going offensively to benefit Drake May. So if you're hiring Mike Vrabel, you're telling him, hey, like you got to make sure you get this offense right. So I'm sure that, as he builds and puts his staff together, he's going to have a very, very high caliber list for who he brings in to be that offensive coordinator. It could be someone like a fired Doug Peterson. And, maybe hopefully he doesn't bring Press Taylor with him, because that would just be the worst situation in the world. Press Taylor was Jaguars play caller last year who I had beef with. Maybe who'd be another? Maybe he snags Liam Cohen from what's it called?
Tampa.
Tampa, right? Because like Tampa, maybe he realizes there's maybe a ceiling with Baker. Maybe we go and test things out with Drake May, see what kind of talent he has, and can he launch my career? Because if you do well with Drake May, now maybe the next team that wants to draft a quarterback that needs a quarterback head coach, or a head coach that can work with a quarterback, and you're the offensive coordinator that helped develop Drake May, maybe that gets you into a spot. Maybe I'm looking too far down the road. But again, the bottom line is Vrable has offensive acumen, or at least knows how to get out of the way of the offense doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, I'll say this, and I think it's worth mentioning. I don't think we're going to see many parallel moves where, like, Brian Flores isn't going to leave to go be defensive coordinator somewhere else. I don't think Liam Cohen is going to do a parallel move. Like, you leave where you're at and winning and working well if you get a promotion. I think the big question still remaining is who's going to run the offense in New England. It's just a big. We'll see who they hire as an offensive coordinator, and so I think there's still questions lingering. Even though I like Mike Vrable and he's awesome, I would have liked Mike Vrable, for example, in Cincinnati with a veteran quarterback, Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen him develop a young rookie quarterback, and so I'm still going to be a bit skeptical. It's just the truth. But I do like the institutional knowledge and the fact that he's got familiarity with New England. And I think.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you here.
No, please.
Mike McCarthy. Does he hire Mike McCarthy as his offensive coordinator?
No way. He's probably going to hire some name you've never heard, honestly, some assistant like Liam Cohen's quarterback coach or someone like that. It's going to be, I think it's very likely it's someone we've never heard of before in this job.
You think it'll be a true promotion for somebody?
Yeah, I could see that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he hasn't probably a person in mind he's worked with before or been with that he's like, that guy, given the opportunity, I think could do well.
That's fair.
And I also don't know if that's right, though. I'd like a proven person. That's the problem with this. I'd like someone who's been proven to have done this before. Bobby Slowick as head coach or something like that. And I just think Robert Kraft, regardless, I think he's uncomfortable getting away from the success New England had previously. And it's like, you fired Bill, you got to maybe like do something entirely different now. But they seem unable to. Now, it's the second coach in a row that's a former player under Bill Belichick, and they just can't get away from that seeming need to have this attachment to Bill Belichick's old Patriots years, which I get it is the best, as a dynasty. But there's this essence of being stuck in the past. I don't know if it's helpful or not in New England.
Yeah, if it doesn't work for Vrabel, in these first 2 years, then I think you do have to kind of blow up the Patriot way and go in a new direction, right? It had been over 20 years. Generations last about 30 years. So you'd be getting close to that time period. It's like, hey, it's probably time to fully transition out of that, say grace, say thank you, but, find a new identity.
You can't afford to screw up Drake May, though. Like this, I'm still, unfortunately, as much as I like Vrabel, I'm not sold he's the right coach to develop Drake May. I'm just really not. And I don't like that. I don't know what to do with that information.
Would you say Dan Quinn's the right coach to develop Jaden Daniels?
Nope. But Cliff Kingsbury was. And that's why I'm going to hold judgment until we see who they hire as offensive coordinator. I think that there's still a piece of the puzzle we got to see before I'm able to make a full judgment on Vrabel's hiring in New England, honestly. And that's the problem when you hire defensive head coaches. There's still another puzzle piece left to solve.
Let's hire, or not let's hire. Maybe let's hire. But no, let's do a Patriots offensive coordinator video as soon as we get the news. And we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
3 hours.
You mentioned Mike McCarthy. He did get fired today. So
fired, mutually agreed to part ways.
It's the same thing, right? Like Jack Easterby will tell you he parted ways with the Texans, but then you read headlines and he got fired. I think it's all the same.
Sure.
Mike McCarthy's not the head coach in Dallas anymore, and I don't think he chose that. So that's fired to me. Mike McCarthy went 6-10 in year one. Then he had 3 years in a row going 12-5 for the Dallas Cowboys. This year they go 7-10. He's canned. I don't know, man. I make sense. It's just weird how Jerry Jones handles things. It always is.
Just so weird.
It's never clean. It's always weird. The way Jason Garrett was fired a couple years ago was weird. The way Mike McCarthy's been fired, it's weird. It's like drawn out and like it's just never clean and straightforward. And Jerry Jones seems unable to. I don't think I'd like to work with or for Jerry Jones. I think it'd be a frustrating, backwards, deal. I don't think the way he does business, he always like tries to do everything family style, whatever the hell that means. Like it's not a place I would want to work or be involved in. What do you make of this? There's not much really to say. It's an update. We'll see where he goes next. Maybe Chicago, but it did happen. It is news. What do you make of Mike McCarthy parting ways or getting fired from or with the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, I don't think either of them wanted each other, if we're being honest. I mean, I'm sure Mike McCarthy would have, accepted the job, but, there's a good chance that maybe he asked for like an extra year on the deal that maybe he didn't get, or maybe the Cowboys wanted him to hire like a certain personnel for next year, or maybe he wanted to like move off of Dak. I'm not saying that's possible given the contract, but maybe they're just something wasn't aligned with their negotiations. And they're both like, are you good if we just kind of, call it quits? And they're like, yeah, let's call it quits.
I think Mike McCarthy's the guy who'll never break up with his girlfriend. He'll just stay there until she breaks up with him. I think that's how, because it happened in Green Bay too. Like he didn't seem happy with Rodgers, but he just waited till they were done with him and told him to leave. So he's like, I just don't think he's ever going to walk away from a job.
Yeah, that's fair. I can't remember what the name of the it's like a psychological phenomenon, essentially, where like if you don't break up with your girlfriend, right, like things are good, but they could be better, and sometimes it takes a tragic changing event for that breakup to be forced, and then you end up, finding something better, right? And that could be with a job. Like your job is good enough to keep, but you don't really like it, but you would take a different job if it popped up, but then it takes you being fired to go out and actually get the job that you want. Did you just find what it's called?
No, I looked up Stockholm syndrome and it's definitely not that, but it's hilarious. Because Stockholm syndrome, a psychological response where a victim develops a bond with their abuser or captor. So
yeah,
victim being Mike McCarthy, abuser being Jerry Jones. It's a hilarious thing to think about, but that's definitely wrong.
Yeah,
but that's still
wrong.
Funny. Like, McCarthy is Stockholm syndrome with Jerry Jones.
Yeah, to sum it up, I mean, if I'm Mike McCarthy, why would I want to coach a team with a quarterback that's massively overpaid, a wide receiver that's, I don't want to say massively overpaid, but is very expensive. Micah Parsons very expensive, so half your money is spent on 3 dudes. One of the guys is coming back from a hamstring off the bone injury, his second lower extremity injury. What kind of quarterback is he going to be coming back next year? And we've pretty much already seen Dak's ceiling as far as elevating his team. So like if I'm Mike McCarthy, why would I go be, no pun intended, hamstrung in that situation? And then if I'm Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, what I've seen is a little bit of lackluster clock management, maybe not super sharp on the details from Mike McCarthy. So why would I bring him back for another year when I could just kind of reset things with a new coach? So I think both of those things can be true. But at the end of the day, Mike McCarthy will maybe get a head coaching job. But to me, if he doesn't get a head coaching job or a high level coordinator job in this cycle, he's probably just done coaching. I know he wouldn't want to be, but I don't think anybody would be, chomping at the bit to bring him back if it's not this year.
I think people were surprised when Jerry Jones basically brought him out of retirement too. Like,
yeah,
I think Jerry Jones has a control issue. He's a control freak, and I think hires. I'm really curious who the next coach of the Cowboys is and what that looks like, because I just don't know what to expect from that at all.
Yeah, and if you want to be the head coach of the Cowboys, is that a good job?
No,
probably not. It's a what's the word? Like it's a really valuable job in terms of, visibility for who you are as a coach, and like somewhat prestigious in a way maybe, but at the end of the day, like, do you want to be with a owner who has to be the smartest one in the room?
Yeah. Can I read a question from Tim? I think we should have read this here in the Vrable segment, but it is an interesting point.
Timmy, talk to me, Tim. What do you
Tim
got?
says, I'm glad that Mike Vrabel is now the head coach of the Patriots. There was reportedly a ton of dysfunction within the previous coaching staff. The GM, Elliot Wolf, said he thought the rookies they drafted would develop more this year. I'm convinced that Vrabel will reestablish a strong culture and put all of his young players on the right development path. My biggest question remains at offensive coordinator, but I'd be happy with someone like Tommy Rees or even Josh McDaniels. Josh will never be head coach again, and not a flight risk. So meaning Josh McDaniels would never leave New England. Does Josh McDaniels interest you? Could he be the Patriots
No,
offensive coordinator?
nope, nope. I don't think so. I think he. You know how Deontay Johnson has like played his way out of the NFL at this point by being difficult to deal with. I think Josh McDaniels, with his head coaching failure with the Raiders most recently, I think that has played his way out of the coaching circle. He might be consulted. Vrabel might give him a call, or somebody around the league might give him a call just to chop things up. Offensively, strategy, this, that, and the other, but bringing him onto your staff, I don't think puts a good taste in anybody's mouth at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Emmett, Funky Kong, and Colin. I'm gonna read your questions next week. They're kind of evergreen topics. They're fine. I'm really tired of things getting sick. I want to read one more from Devin. Devin says, "Say we live in a world where Pittsburgh has the balls to do what they need to, and what do you think he's gonna say, Nathan?"
Fire Arthur. I'm just kidding. Fire Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, part ways with Mike Tomlin. I like where you're headed though. Which team would Mike Tomlin be a good fit with next year if he did get fired from Pittsburgh? Here's why I think this question is interesting. It shows whether anyone else would want Mike Tomlin. Is he valuable to anyone other than Pittsburgh? Where would Mike Tomlin fit if not in Pittsburgh?
That's a great question. What team would take him?
Like Chicago?
I wouldn't put him in Chicago. No, because he's proven that he can't get offense going.
Yeah.
Once Ben Roethlisberger retired, they had nothing. Right. Once he lost Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown, like all three of those guys in their own rights, Hall of Fame level talents. Now, whether they actually get in, who knows?
Sure.
But since those guys have moved on, it's been awful offensively. I'm not going to bring him in with Caleb Williams. No shot.
What about Jacksonville?
Jacksonville, kind of a similar deal. I've been struggling to get my franchise quarterback that I've paid a lot of money to without really having earned it. I'm not going to bring in a defensive guy who's shown that he can't put offense together.
You know where I would put Mike Vrabel? I think this would be awesome. Or yes, jeez, dude, I think I'm starting to lose my voice, like for real. I would put.
You sound great, by the way. You sound
great. I'd put Mike Tomlin. Contingency plan. If Mike Tomlin got fired by the Steelers, then if I'm Cincinnati, I'm like, sorry, Zach. Thanks for everything. Bye. I'm hiring Mike Tomlin tomorrow. Because I think Mike Tomlin with a veteran quarterback who's established and doesn't need any help, who's already got his end of the bargain done, is interesting. Because Tomlin and Roethlisberger was a good pair. They won a Super Bowl together. Tomlin needs a quarterback who's established and going to win him games.
But
and Burrow needs a great defense. They actually would work well together. It'd be interesting.
Do you want to take a quarterback who has a high 50s cap hit, a wide receiver that's taken $30+ million a year, T. Higgins probably on the franchise tag? Mike Tomlin likes to spend that money on defense. All of it's on offense.
Do you like having Russell Wilson at quarterback? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, but
it's not working currently.
What I'm saying is his blueprint for what he wants to do, and maybe he would, have a come to Jesus moment about how he wants to coach football. But if you go to Cincinnati, all that money is spent on offense already. That was the big downfall of Cincinnati, right? Like they couldn't pay anybody outside of Hendrickson and Hubbard on that defense. And that ended up costing them dearly this year. So if you take Tomlin, you put him in there, he's like, all right, well, we probably got to get rid of Jamar Chase here. We got to create some cap room. I mean, not literally, but I mean, that's my problem. I would honestly see him more somewhere like the Raiders.
Yeah. What about the Raiders? You need to trade for J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, he needs to go to a place that needs things tightened up. Like Sean McDermott, he was able to take over the Bills while they were floundering and get them going in the right direction. Mike Tomlin I don't want to call him a bridge coach, But kind of like we were talking about with like an offensive specialist coming in to work with a quarterback, he needs to be a guy to come in and help change your culture. And then you hire one person after him to get the job done.
You know what would be really, really interesting? Like the coach quarterback pair that I think would be, just given where this person's from, given who they played for before, Mike Tomlin with Shadur Sanders as his quarterback would be really interesting.
Interesting is the exact word I would use to describe it. Nothing more.
I don't know if it'd be good, but it'd be interesting.
That would be very interesting.
That's all I got, man. That's the show. Watch Ravens Bills. Watch the national title. I'm gonna try to not get sick. Anything else you want to add before we end the show, Nathan?
Yeah. Meet me in the comments. I'm down there. I'm in there. I'm responding to you guys, doing my best to defend some takes and doing my best to listen to some takes that you guys have. So let us know what you think of the show. Let us know where you think, maybe we fell short, and maybe we see it, maybe we won't. But we appreciate you guys supporting the show, and we're thankful.
I respect that you read the comments. I don't. I've checked out. I love you guys for commenting. I've gotten too much internet hate. I actually talked about this Jack Easterby today. I was like, oh, look, I haven't gotten nearly the hate Jack Easterby has, but I've gotten enough hate in my career. I'm just like, the good doesn't outweigh the bad. I'm just like, I don't want to read it. I'm good. I've had too much. Like, I have real problems in my life. Like, I've got heater furnaces that don't work and jobs to try to sell, and I have real things. I don't need to deal with some guy on the internet who hates me. I'm like, he doesn't like me. I don't even know him. And best part about it, I don't even know if he's commenting stuff that he hates me. I'm like, I just don't even, I just don't engage anymore. And it protects my sad little heart.
I'm fortunate enough not to have seen, all the hate yet. And I've only been doing this for a couple months now. But like I said,
you missed the big ones. You missed the big years where we were a bigger show and we had people coming at us from every angle, and you made me lucked out. Actually,
like you said, we'll be back there soon. Like you said though, there's real life problems, and again, like I rode the bench on an 0-11 football team. It's something that I've come to grips and come to terms with. Like, there's nothing you guys can say from behind your computers that's going to hurt my feelings. I get passionate about football just like you guys do. I get passionate about my takes and why and how I say and get to the things that I do. But you guys hurting my feelings, no way.
I'll say this because I think it's. I actually talked about it with my therapist today, literally for real. By the way, I'm so busy at work, I didn't even make it home for therapy. I did therapy in my car. I had to pull off on the side of the road and do therapy like on my phone, like on Microsoft Teams, because I suck. Like that's how much has been happening in my job. I can't get away. But we talked about the most offensive thing, like the thing that you can say to me, Zach, that hurts me the most is if you call me lazy. If you say I'm lazy and I don't give good effort, nothing bothers me more. It's not true about me. I give incredible Herculean effort to almost everything I do. If you call me lazy, now the truth is, I don't know why it bothers me because I know it's not true, but it really hurts my feelings and I hate it so much. And now what's going to happen, by the way, and feel free to do it. It'd be kind of funny actually if like everyone commented Zach's lazy, never gives effort. It'd be kind of like a meme for people to respond that way. But that I want people to know that's the thing. And I probably should admit it. That's the thing that like hurts more than anything because it's just fundamentally not true about me. I work my ass off to make stuff happen every day, and that sounds like you reacted. That criticism sounds like it speaks to you too.
That's the one that bothers me the most, and it doesn't affect me. I'd say personally, is calling me lazy because, like you said, like we know that we're not. We're aggressive people that get after it. But when you call the takes lazy because you disagree with it, that's when I'm like, okay, well, here's stat, here's info.
What's lazy criticism to say it's my take's lazy?
Criticism for you to just say, bro, that's so lazy, you're so wrong. Okay, can you tell me why? Yeah. And if all you're going to do is comment down there and just be a hater, it's just funny to laugh. But yeah, the lazy one, that certainly it gets me fired up. But now that's all we're gonna. That was, remember when I texted you last week and I said, hey, I had to get in the comments.
Is that what happened?
Somebody said it was our Sam Darnold take was lazy, and I'm like, no,
That was a great
here's
take.
XYZ.
That
Here's
was a really
XYZ
thoughtful segment. I almost made it into a breakout and I just ran out of time. By the way, I wanted to make like 4. Our podcast last week was fucking great. I wanted to make
really
like
good.
4. I was going to make like 4 videos and then I literally was stuck at houses till like 9 or 10, 3 nights of the week. And I'm like, and then getting up at 5 for meetings at 6. And I'm like, I just don't have time to do both jobs right now. I apparently I can only do one. So you're getting a full show and no breakouts because I literally like am not sleeping. I have to be at my office at 6:30 tomorrow morning. It's 10:37 p.m. By the time I edit this, go to bed, like that's hard. I'm really struggling to like do both things. Like I think people can't even fathom my schedule as a human being. I'm like, I don't. God damn it.
They don't understand the work. I know. We just got all worked up. I'm gonna go make a PB&J and wind this thing down.
Yeah. Anyway, I love you, man. Thanks for your time. Great job, and I'll see you next week.
Ba-dum boom, bop boop, beep bop, ba bop, bam. We're done.
It was close, guys. He was wrong, but we'll leave it.
I lost it.
But bam, we're done.